Hello everyone. Today we are going to look at Python modules. Now, some may be wondering, what are Python modules? Python modules is a file that consists of Python codes. Okay, so those Python codes now, they are the features which we call to perform a certain task. Very important. So we are going to be looking at some examples under Python, the modules. The first one we're going to look at the math module. The math module. So in order to use the math module, we have to import the math module. Very important. Import the math module. Then we are also going to use the print function to access these features present in our math module using the print, open bracket, the directory, and the module math. So if we run this now, we are going to have the list of informations. Okay, you see various features present in our module. So what we are going to do now, unlike before that during the school days whereby you have to perform the calculations for yourself, it's different here in coding. In coding, what you do is you need to know the necessary module and call that module, then access the feature that can perform that specific task you want to accomplish. So the first thing we are going to do now, let's say we have a task, we want to get a log. Okay, to get the log. So to get a log now, we can say let's declare a variable. I'll call it num1. Num is equals to 100. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the print function. Okay, print, open bracket. So I'm going to call the module math dot. We're going to look for the feature responsible for performing log. So we can see we have log and log 10, but we're going to use the log. So call log and pass in the number. Okay, so when we run this now, you see it's giving us 4.605170 and the rest. Okay, so now we have been able to perform a calculation just by knowing the actual model, the module, and also calling out the necessary feature to perform that task. Okay, another one, let's get the square root. The square root. So if I want to get the square root of 50. So what I have to do first of all is I'm going to create another variable. We'll call it num1 is equals to 50. Okay, now it's equals to 50. Now we want to perform a square root. Remember that I said that you need to know the actual module and for you to get the actual feature. Okay, so now we are going to use the print function, print, open bracket, then we call the math, which is the module, dot. We look for square roots. The abbreviations for square roots here we have is sqrt. Okay, math, sqrt. Then I pass in our variable, that is num1. So when I run this now, you see it's giving us 7.07. That is the square root of 50. Okay, the square root. Okay, so we just pass in the feature and the number and it performs the calculation. Then one more, let's say we want to get the approximation. We want to approximate a number and we want to remove the decimal. Okay, so to do that now, we are going to create another variable, call it num2 is equals to 38.9. 38.9. So now let's perform the approximation. To perform approximation, we are going to use the ceiling. Okay, so we're going to say print, open bracket, the math dot the ceiling. Then I pass in the variable num2. Okay, then I want to perform also, I want to remove this decimal. Remember the first one we want to do is approximate, then we want to remove the decimal. So to remove the decimal now, I'm going to use the floor. So print the math dot floor. Then I pass in the number. So when we run this now, you see, okay, I think I need to close my bracket. So when I close my bracket now, you see 39, the approximation, and 38, means we have removed the 0.9. All right, then now, so we have been able to look at some few features in the module. Now let's go to the next module to look at. We want to look at the statistics. Okay, the statistics. So we are going to import the statistics first. and we're going to give it the representative as stats, meaning that we call stats is automatically going to call statistics. All right, then we are also going to assess the attributes present in statistics, because statistics is also a module. So we call stats. So when I run this now, we have the various features embedded in stats. Okay, now let's say we want to perform the mean, the median, and the mode, okay, using the statistics. So what we do is that, first of all, we create a variable. Variable is going to be num3 is equals to, now we're going to have a list of integers to perform these calculations. So I'm going to have 45, 78, 90, 78, and 32. Okay, so now we have this information now. Now what we are going to do now is that we're going to perform the mean, median, mode, and standard deviation. But this time around, we are going to use the f string to write the information. Okay, so because we can't do the previous one, we will not be able to get, when someone wants to see it, he will not be able to understand what it's all about. So we're going to use the print f string and say the mean. Then here we perform the calculation. So say the stats dot the mean, then I pass in num3. Okay, now I'm going to copy this information now to do for the mean and the median. Okay, so I'm going to change this, the mean, to the median. And also we are also going to change the attributes. Okay, so if you look for it, you see the mean, median, the median group, the median high, median low, and the mode. Okay, but we want to just use the mean, median, mode. So I'll pick the mean. Also I'll pick for the mode. The mode. Then lastly, we'll do for the standard deviation. Standard deviation. Standard deviation. So for the standard deviation now, we are going to look for the standard deviation, and the abbreviation here is stdev. Okay, so change this mean to stdev. All right, so when we run this now, it's going to give us an output. So you see what I'm talking about. We're able to know the mean, the median, the mode, and the standard deviation. So that's for statistics. Then also the last one we want to look at, we want to see the random module. The random module. So for the random module now, also we have to import. Remember, the first thing we have to do, we import the random module. Okay, and we also assess the features using the print and the directory. So I call the module, and for run this now, we also have the features present in our random. Okay, now we want to use our random module. So the random module now, we can use it to generate random numbers, random choices. Okay, so let us do for random numbers. So for random numbers, I'm going to create a variable, call it var is equals to, I pass in the random dot rand integer. So rand integer is the attribute that is responsible for giving us a random number. Okay, so now we want to get a random number, let's say from 1 to 25. Okay, then give us a random number from 1 to 25. So we're giving it a range where it can pick. So we say var, if I run the var, now it's going to give us 3. If I run it again, 23. Okay, so the more I keep running, the more it keeps giving me a different number. Okay, then lastly, let's say we want to get for choices. Let's say we want to pick a random name. So I can call it names is equals to, and I pass in 3 names: Peter, James, and John. Okay, so we're going to use these 3 names now to perform a random choice. Okay, so now I have to close. Okay, now I'll call a variable that's going to hold the calculations. So I'm going to say nt, just a random variable. Nt will say random dot choices. Okay, because if you look at you see choices, you want to get more than one. So choices, then I pass in the names. Please ensure you write it according to the way it is, how you created the variable. So when I do this now and I press nt now to see a random name, when I run this now, it's giving us John. If I run it again, James, you see. So we have come to the end of this class. I hope we're able to learn what's around, know what's modules, the types of modules we have, and how to perform calculations and random choices.